Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers as we talk Seahawks football. Hey Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers. Hey Keith, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We watched some Seahawks football. Even if it wasn't great football, it was still football, so I'm feeling pretty good right now.
It wasn't bad football considering all the circumstances in the first game and all sorts of rookies and young players involved with this roster. I thought overall, I kind of left with a pretty decent impression. A little disappointed, in a number of different areas, but not completely washing out the positives that I came away with.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to look at this team and go, this game, says this team is going to be blank, because you look at it like they didn't have a single member of their starting secondary, right? They didn't have any of their top four wide receivers, just stuff like that. It makes it really hard to look at this team and make any kind of team-wide evaluations based on a preseason game. But individually wise, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like in this game. So, the pass rush came up pretty big. This was the most competent the pass rush has looked since Michael Bennett left.
Yeah, Boye Mafe had a really nice game. I mean, he had a strip sack in the first half, and in the fourth quarter gave the team a chance with that really nice chase down sack of Kenny Pickett in the fourth quarter, end of the fourth quarter, to give the team a prime opportunity to possess the ball, go down and kick a field goal and win it, or touchdown. And the very next play on offense, that was the play that Drew Lock was blindsided and strip sacked himself, and Pittsburgh took possession, went down and scored. Now that's the way the game ended, and we can disseminate that or whatever as far as the diagnosis of the play pre-snap with Drew Lock on the blindside protection. But I wasn't so much concerned about the way that they lost or the fact that they did lose in general. That's a great learning experience for Drew Lock. I'll just start, with my impression on the quarterback play. It was interesting because statistically, when you looked at the stat lines at the end of the day, they looked somewhat similar as far as yardage and completion percentage and so forth. But I left with the impression that Geno Smith, had more starters available to him when he was on offense. Of course, Pittsburgh was throwing out their guys as well. But I thought that he struggled a little bit more, at least right out of the gate. In fact, into the second quarter, before he really kind of put together some stuff and then finally put together a pretty decent drive. But I don't know how I felt about the way that Geno Smith played in this game. Everyone's kind of going, yeah, it was kind of a 50-50 thing. I thought Drew Lock actually came out when he had his opportunity in the second half and looked sharp right at the beginning when he got on the field and just kind of drove the team. He had the running game behind him. Everything just looked in sync with Drew Lock a little bit more. Ended up having a couple of touchdown throws, which helped him a little bit. Could have had a third, possibly, if Parkinson would have held onto that ball. It was, I thought, nicely thrown there, and he had his hands on it first and just couldn't pull it in. But overall, my impression was I think Drew Lock came away slightly ahead, but when you even out the rosters that they had to play with and so forth, maybe it is even.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt that Lock played better and sharper, and just looked more, I don't want to say in control, because that's not the right word, because Smith actually looked like he was pretty well in control and all of that. But Locke had the 2 touchdowns. He had the longer gains. He had the higher rating, a lot of different things. And then you go back and you look at yards per attempt, and they're both just beyond mediocre, like awful, like 6.7 and 6.8. And you go, oh, okay, so maybe neither of them was good. But I still felt Locke was better. But neither
Bo
of them
Melton
was
had
good.
the drop for Geno Smith, and then Kobe Parkinson with the drop in the end zone there would have increased those a little bit, I think. Made everything look just a little better, especially for Drew Lock. I think he would have come away with 3 touchdowns and in
3
clear
touchdowns and a
command.
half.
Yeah. And so I thought that was pretty cool. The other first strong impressions that I had overall was the pass protection and the run blocking were stellar in this game for our offensive line, Keith.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what you have to say, but I was really impressed with the 2 rookie tackles. I mean,
I was
honestly,
too.
it was great.
So yeah, Abe Lucas had the most snaps of any player for the Seahawks in this game. And that to me was, they put him out there and they left him out there. They wanted to get him as many snaps as they could to just have an opportunity to learn. And he just came up big. He really did. And Cross had a lot fewer snaps because he was with the starting line, and so they didn't leave him out there as long, but he looked like he belonged. I mean, absolutely. Those 2 kids played great, and it's great to see.
And I noticed they moved Curhan into right tackle, took Gabe Jackson out. He started the game. Curhan, after 2 series, Abe Lucas came in at right tackle. Curhan moved over to right guard, and they ran with that for quite a while.
Yeah, and that was one of those things that you look at and you like, they gave Jake Curran the start, and then once Lucas came in, like they moved Curran over. If you look at the 3 tackles between Cross, Curran, and Lucas, the 3 of them played more combined snaps than the Seahawks had snaps in the game. So that meant that the 3 of them were on the field together at times, and that was kind of cool to see. You've got, Jake Curran's a mauler of a run blocker, and if they can get him in at guard and get him some reps there, so that he can be a versatile player who can play at 4 spots or 3 spots on the line, because I don't think you ever want him at left tackle, but 3 spots on the line, like that's only going to add to his value. It's only going to add to the flexibility this team has if injuries pop up. So I loved it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, overall, they didn't have really any mistakes. I think they had 1 pressure the entire game from the entire offensive line. So I think everyone gets an A+ for that, for sure. Give the coaching staff an opportunity to properly evaluate the quarterbacks within the confines of the way that the offense is designed, I think is about as good as you can ask for in that situation.
Well, and that right there just kind of compounds what I was saying about the quarterbacks looking mediocre. I mean, if they're not getting pressured and you're only getting 6.8 yards per attempt, some of that's the fact that all the receivers were out. Give them a little bit of a pass for that, but they didn't have pressure on them.
I noticed some early checkdowns specifically from Geno Smith. Now, I didn't have a chance to really go look at Drew Lock a second time to find out if he was really kind of taking what the defense was giving him, or if he was kind of bailing early on his checks. And but I know Geno was
bailing really early and not giving the play a chance to develop, where the bigger play could be. And so just a lot of drop back, throw it to the back coming out of the backfield, and not even really looking downfield.
Well, I mean, yeah, take that with a grain of salt because it's first game, and
because the receivers were all out.
Right. I mean, there was probably 10 or 12 starters that didn't even touch the field in this game overall, and a lot of those were the wide receivers. Yeah. I thought I wanted to talk about the running game and receiving the ball out of the backfield if you want to combine the 2. I thought overall, man, I was really happy with the way this game turned out as far as the running game was concerned.
Yeah. I was hoping for a little bit more from Kenneth Walker, given that he got the start and all of that. But he really just kind of ran into some defenders. Once the starting defenders, came out, that was by then Homer and Dallas had taken over, and DJ Dallas looked good in this game.
Yeah. I know that Ken Walker, was hit behind the line of scrimmage a couple times right in the middle. And that was like, I was thinking Austin Blythe, and I couldn't see Austin Blythe on the shot on the TV. But man, that's where it came from. And so I was like, well, that was blowing up, relatively quick. He didn't even have a chance, but, and that really impacted, I think, his ability to kind of add to his totals there.
DJ Dallas averaged 7.3 yards per attempt.
Easily the best player on offense in this game.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He looked really good doing it. And this isn't a case where he had one 70-yard run and that just skews his stats. His long was only 18. So that meant he really was that productive on almost every run. It looked great. And Travis Homer looked good coming out of the backfield. I mean, he had, the 2 receptions for 33 yards. And
4 carries for 41 yards.
Yeah.
So he again had the 10 per. And then DJ Dallas had the reception, the 17-yarder from Drew Lock as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked what I saw from the running backs in this, and just the receiving. Look at there were 6 players who had receptions in this game. Well, no, that's not true. There's what was it? Oh, there's 5 players who had more than 1 reception in this game. That's it.
And the running backs, were 2 of those. So
yeah.
What did you think of Bo Melton and Derek Young?
I kind of liked what I saw from Derek Young. I thought that he, just such a big body, he can get the ball and he runs physically. Led the team with 4 receptions. I thought that he looked pretty good. Bo Melton was the bigger down the field threat. He had that 39-yard completion, but he also had a key drop that kind of hurt the team, its ability to string together drives and that kind of stuff. So that wasn't the best showing from him. But overall, I thought they did all right. I mean, these are 7th round picks. These guys are not expected to come in and make an impact week 1. Especially not week 1 of the preseason. And yet they were starting. They were out there because everyone else, the top 4 wide receivers were all out for this game.
Yeah. No, it was a great opportunity. No, absolutely. Bo Melton had that 1 drop, but then came back, had 2 receptions, 47 yards. He had that one that was kind of a broken coverage thing with Gino. But he took advantage. Derek Young, I thought, looked really nice. His body size and his ability to shield the ball and move in space and just have that physical presence on the field, you can just see the potential there. And especially right away on special teams, I hope he can make the roster. It's going to be tight there at the end. We can talk about that in other shows, but first good impression, I thought. Let's turn our tables over to the defense for a little while and talk about Boye Mafe and the idea that he's just in his first year. He's going to be a rotation guy. He's probably not going to start immediately, but the idea of pairing him with a guy like Darrell Taylor on the other side gives the Seahawks a really good opportunity here for some bookend type pressure on this team that we haven't seen for a few years.
Both of those players looked really good in this game. There's the one where Darrell Taylor, just with a great, move, stepped inside and had a free run at, I think it was the first series with Mason Rudolph, but it might have been with Mitch Trubisky. It was like right in that spot where they made that switch, but he had just had a clean shot and then missed. And it turned out to be a 2-yard gain or a 3-yard gain where the quarterback ran scramble, and you want him to get those sacks and finish that play. But the fact that he was into the backfield that quickly, interfering with the play and making it hard, was impressive. And, Mafe had 2 of the biggest plays of the game with the strip sack and then that 4th down sack at the, right at the end of the game in order to give the Seahawks a chance.
That was so huge. I mean, the chase down on that thing just shows the speed. The closing speed on him was ridiculous. I mean, that's going to be something to watch all year for sure.
Yeah, those two guys look. They both look like the real deal, and I don't want to take anything away from Nuwasu and Robinson and the other guys at that position, but both of those two that we started with they look like they're going to be long-term solutions for Seattle at that outside linebacker in this 3-4 defense.
Nice. So what did you think of Josh Jones? I was going to pay attention to Josh Jones in this game. I think he finished with 3 tackles. And it's just one of those players I think that Seattle fans are going to be watching here in the next couple of games to see if he can have an impact. And I think, he's already on the roster, pretty sure of that. But it'll be interesting to see how they use him and how they use Jamal Adams together on the field at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see with that, but it was hard. It's hard to evaluate safeties with the broadcast camera, and they don't give you the all 22 for preseason games. So I don't want to say he was great or whatever. But I thought he did the job. He did miss 1 tackle early in the game, but after that he seemed to settle in and kind of was in control of what was going on there. You've got, with everyone else out, there's no starters, like none of the starting safeties, none of the starting corners were playing. And so he kind of was the most experienced guy out there, and he kind of had control over what was going on. And I thought that he was in position when he should have been. And so overall, I thought it looked pretty good from him. But it's hard to say, like I said, without the all 22 film.
Well, speaking of that, there were a few things that you could take away that were not on the positive side, more or less. I was a little disappointed in the defensive back play in this game, but maybe we can talk about that. Maybe it's not as bad as it was. I mean, obviously there were some key moments where they had some breakdowns and allowed some, a touchdown there at the back of the end zone. I think that was on Woolen, but it looked like Justin Coleman was in that play as well, and they kind of had a conversation about who was taking who after it happened. And then Kobe Bryant was beat on a touchdown on great coverage. I have to say, just to get around on it.
It was good coverage, and it was just a good throw. So
it was a great throw, really.
Sometimes you're going to get beat even with good coverage.
Pickens looks like a player.
Yeah, he really does.
Wide receiver for Pittsburgh.
He looks like that's going to be, a standout for them. And they kind of needed that. They traded the guy that was their best receiver, in Juju Smith-Schuster. Yeah, they traded him. They needed someone to step up, and it sure looks like Pickens is going to. There's a pun there with him picking on Seattle's corners, but yeah, I mean, he was tough to cover. I thought Kobe Bryant did okay. I thought
he tackled better than he. Well, I'm just gonna leave it there. I think he played well. Yeah,
I thought he did. I thought he did all right. I think Tariq Woolen had a great learning experience. His athleticism and size and everything showed up, but so did his inexperience. And there was one touchdown where he was clearly playing man, and the rest of the team was playing zone. And so he just vacated a spot, and someone walked into it for an easy touchdown. And that kind of stuff, that's the kind of thing that'll get cleaned up. I'm not worried about it. I mean, these are our 4th and 5th round rookies. These aren't guys that are expected to come in and hold down this position. But, the 2 starters were both out for this game. And so those 2 got a lot of playing time. And I thought they did all right. Kobe Bryant did better than Tariq Woolen, but overall, both of them did okay. And it's their first preseason game. This is not a position where you come in, especially unless you're, a top 10 pick or something, where you just come in and dominate from day one. There's a growing pains involved. And I thought that they got an opportunity to get through a bunch of those.
Yeah, and Tariq Woolen missed a tackle too in wide open space. that was kind of tough to watch. But I thought other than that, his physical presence out there and his length is going to come in handy as the years go by. I'm sure that he will work into that spot. All indications, Keith, are that he's going to be stellar. It's just going to take a little bit of time for him to recognize coverages, paying attention to calls on the, in the game, and the adrenaline and all that stuff, and the speed of the game. I know he's extremely fast. There's no question he's going to be able to make up a lot of space with that speed. But NFL game time speed is way different than practice. And so that's going to take a little bit of time for him to adjust to.
Yeah. And I mean, when we say speed of the game, like his speed isn't what affects him there. It's the processing speed of what he's seeing that he has to adapt to. And he will. Go back to the first year, which would have been 2012, I believe, with Brandon Browner. And he looked awful, like not just awful, but just pure awful.
And wondering what the coaches were seeing in this guy.
Yeah. For the first 6 games. And coincidentally, there was a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he just got devoured in that game and gave up like 180 yards passing just to targets to his guy. And it was awful. And we were like, wow, what is going on? Why do they keep running this guy out there? This experiment needs to end. And then he caught up, and everything that they were seeing in practice started to show up on the field. And by the end of the season, he was looking like a incredible find by this front office.
Yes,
but
that's very true.
This is a guy that wasn't coming out of college. He was coming out of Canada. So he'd been playing professionally already. And it still took him half a season to catch up. And I kind of saw some of that in Woolen in this game, where you could tell that he has the physical ability to do it, but he needs the experience. He needs more coaching. He needs a chance to do it, go back to the film room, watch himself make the mistakes and figure out what he should have seen and all of that. Yeah. God, the potential's there. I see it.
This guy's literally, 3 weeks into his NFL career.
Yeah.
So it shows.
have some patience, because corner is one of those positions. It just doesn't come instantly. It takes time. It took Richard Sherman 6 weeks, in order to get everything. And he's a Hall of Famer. So Woolen's going to take some time. And be okay with that.
It seems like Pittsburgh was pretty effective in moving the ball. I think they had close to 400 yards, Keith. In which, whatever. But are you at all concerned in the way that Seattle scheme wise was effective in this game or ineffective?
Not really. Because a lot of the stuff, like you put Diggs back there at safety, and a couple of those big plays don't happen. That there was the play, I think it was Mason Rudolph. Yeah. It was on his first drive, 3rd and 13, and they got pressure on him, and he just hung the ball out there to what was good coverage by Kobe Bryant. And it still went for a touchdown in the back corner of the end zone to Pickens. Like, they had pressure, they had good coverage. Sometimes you just get beat. Most of the time you get pressure with good coverage on a 3rd and 13 like that. That's a stop. And, they're kicking a field goal instead of getting the touchdown. And that's football. Unfortunately, sometimes it goes that way for you. That's
very true.
There were a bunch of those little plays, a bunch of like missed tackles by Woolen, and the best player on this defense didn't play. That would be Jordan Brooks in the middle. Artie
Burns was out. Sidney Jones was out. Our top 2 corners. Justin Coleman, we have no idea what's going on.
Justin Coleman did not look good. He did not look good. So I don't know. Like I said, he was great when he was in Seattle before, but he has not shown particularly well in camp, and he did not look good in this game.
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting, when you take a look at the defense as a whole, there's just a ton to be excited about. I'm not worried about the defense, although it is a bit concerning that they start flat in these sorts of games where they're giving up yards. They're close, but not getting to the quarterback. They're giving up some plays and so forth. It's eerily similar to how we've started in the past. I granted this is preseason. I get it, but it's just something to watch.
Yeah, and then you have also guys were in position to make plays, and then some of them didn't. And you know what I mean? So you get
it goes on both sides of the ball too on offense. Like Noah Fant not getting his second foot down in bounds.
Yeah.
That play was frustrating because that's an easy pitch and catch, and he should have had that and should have been more aware of where he was at.
But. Yeah, and some of that's it's preseason, and some of that is he does need to just be more aware of it. But the fact that, especially on defense, yeah, they gave up a lot of yards, but they had guys in position to make plays. And that wasn't always true under the previous defensive coaching.
So, and you're looking at coaching with that.
Yeah. They had, guys there, and if they missed the tackle, that's on the player, not on the coaching staff. It's not on the scheme. In the, last year, there wouldn't have been someone there. And so it would have been an easy catch and run, and Diggs has to make a tackle 15 yards downfield and that kind of stuff. And this year, at least in this game, someone was there. Now they missed the tackle, and that's part of playing. He got a third stringer out there.
The only time there wasn't anybody where there was that touchdown in front of Woolen there. That was wide open. But other than that, we had Bo Melton on the other side of the coin was wide open as well when he had his 30 yard reception and run as well. So
yeah, and he also had a drop. So that was a play that should have gone as a positive for Seattle and a negative for Pittsburgh, and didn't. That's the opposite of the the Kenny Pickett catch, where where you had guys there and you did everything right defensively and still got beat because great throw, great catch. Sometimes you have great throw and a drop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
like the Parkinson thing in the end zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So guys were put in position to make plays. And I'm excited for the defensive coaching staff for that reason, because guys were in position to make plays. And when you put better players in that position, they'll make the play. And that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, no, that's all you can take away from these sorts of games. The score doesn't really matter. We got another game coming up really quick this week.
Oh, yeah, we
on Thursday night at home against the Chicago Bears. That'll be interesting. They're kind of pushing their roster around just like we have in the offseason. It'll be really interesting. I think expectations are really low for them, even lower, I think, than Seattle. Quite frankly, I think Seattle's got a pretty decent roster built around a non-quarterback situation, and they've got their quarterback, and they're still searching for players to build around. Yeah,
their roster's really not in a state, but they have their quarterback. And if they can manage to build their roster before they break the quarterback,
right,
like mentally and physically, then they'll be in good shape. But they don't have much of a roster, and they're kind of. But they're in that rebuild mode. The previous front office thought they were good enough to win if they could get a quarterback, so they went and got the quarterback, but they weren't. Clearly not. Clearly.
Yeah. So we're going to come back in the middle of the week here and do a game preview for that show as well. Find out what else we've seen in practice this week, what we'd like to take away from this particular game. I think this is probably the most important game for starters. If you're going to play your starters, this would probably be it. I think game 3 is more of last chance, who's going to make the roster, getting everybody out there to get their final looks in. So,
well, the other thing is that, like, if you look at last year, once they shifted from 4 preseason games down to 3, there was a lot fewer starters that played at all, just around the league and especially in Seattle. So that might be one of those things that we're looking at, is that, if they're going to play a starter, they're going to play in this next game. but they may not play just to keep him out. Cause that's, you've only got 3 preseason games and you got to get as many looks as you can at the back end of the roster. So
that's very true. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. All right. I think we're going to get out of here.
Let's do it.
So thanks for joining us, everyone. Find Keith on Twitter at Mars NFL. You can find me at NWChawk. You know where to find the show, but make sure you hit the subscribe button. We could use all the subscribers we can get. And if you like it, share it. Until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWChawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.